All right. And I am actually starting at the time that I said I was going to start at. Imagine that. Click through some stuff here to make sure it's all working like it's supposed to.
Time that I said I was going to start.
Sounds like it's working. Perfect. Greetings all. Today, GME stock go brr. That's the money counting machine. You throw your $100 bills in and it stacks them all up for you. I'm sure many people here are aware of what's going on. I remember a couple of weeks ago, I said you might want to look at the cryptocurrency thing, because the money isn't looking so hot with all the printing of the stimulus and whatever, bailing out banks and all that stuff. And you may want to look at like Bitcoin, just throwing it out there, right? Well, it turns out what a year 2020 has been, not just with the old virus thing going around, but also the light that's been shined in these dark, seedy little corners of what our governments and major corporations and the banks have all been up to for many, many years, right? And we tried to fight back a little bit. You try to fight back. You want to get old Ron Paul in there. Then you find out the system is rigged and you're not going to have a third party in there no matter what. And then you want to go after Wall Street because the Federal Reserve is a private bank that just gets to control the economies of the world just cause. So you occupy Wall Street and that really kind of doesn't go anywhere, right? You find out that the government is going to prop up Wall Street and bail out banks and do whatever, because that's where the government gets their money to pay for pensions. So they'll let the big guys break the rules all the time. But now, in this age where we're at now, where we want to go forward with the Great Reset, as the world organizations want to call the Great Reset for everything. Well, they want to do that because in this digital age and the age of cryptocurrencies and in the age of being able to buy stock and trade and do all these things instantaneously, it's finally caught up to where people have figured out how they can beat the system. And it's not standing outside of Wall Street holding a protest sign. Sign my petition, sign my petition. How long have people been doing that? A long time. Doesn't go anywhere. Well, now we take it out the banksters. Okay. What is going on here, if people who are unawares of it, is a failing corporation, brick and mortar store called GameStop. Has been on the way out for a long time because video games have all gone digital. You buy your Xbox and you pay for their service, like the internet for the Xbox. And you buy a game right there and it downloads. It's like Netflix. It downloads onto your box and you got it. You don't need to go to a store to go get a game that they may or may not have it. Getting used stuff and things like that was okay. That's what people went to GameStop for. But it's been failing and they treated their employees terribly and they have a really bad sort of cloud around them amongst the gamer community. So their stock was going to fail. And all of these big hedge fund guys, they all got together and they all decided that they're going to short sell a stock, GameSpot or GameStop, which will effectively make the stock go to zero because they're borrowing all of the shares available for GameStop with the intention of the stock going to zero so they don't have to pay for the stocks to give back to the exchange. They're borrowing stocks. They're not actually owning it. And a bunch of gamers, the old thing of Generation Z and the millennials, right? The big insult to throw at them is they sit in their parents' basement and play video games or something. Well, what else do you expect them to do when you trash the economy for the last 20 years, right? Well, they finally got it to the point where you don't need a whole lot of money, just a lot of people, to where you can actually affect change in the system. And that's what they did with GameStop. By making the GameStop stock go from $2 a share that all of these hedge funds bought into, expecting it to go to zero, they effectively raised the price to hundreds of dollars, at which point would the big hedge funds would have to buy the stocks out at hundreds of dollars as opposed to $2 when they go and return their short sale stuff, costing them many billions of dollars to the point they had to be bailed out. And it's still ongoing, and they're doing it with multiple things, and the government will continue to bail them out. Now, 2020, we see clearly now, this is how the system works. All right. And for everyone who says, when I want to talk about crypto or anything like that, that this is a game that, it's gambling or it's wicked or something like that. It's like, if you have a 401k or you have an investment plan or you have Social Security, where do you think your money is? It's with these hedge fund guys. Now, the reason that Occupy Wall Street, none of those things ever took off, is because those hedge fund guys are protected by the government, because that is where the 401k Social Security money is. They allow them to do all sorts of shady stuff, okay, to prop up the failing economy and make sure that pension, Social Security stuff still goes out like it looks like it's doing okay. That's why. And what ended up happening, what's still going on with this is inevitably the gamer guys from Reddit, the Bitcoiners who are holding the stock, really putting the squeeze on these big hedge funds, the exchanges are selling the stock without their permission to bail out the hedge funder guys. Government's coming in, shutting down exchanges, stopping trading to make sure that the big guys don't fail and the little guys can't make a buck, right? That's how the system works. But this has a real effect. Now they're like, you can actually affect change. Take a look at the old article here. So of the GameStop deal that's going on, and this is a big thing, and it affects if you're not into stocks or whatever. If you have a 401k account, you have some sort of pension plan, the entire market is going to go down because these investors are invested in all sorts of different markets. And because they're taking these bad bets to try and drive GameStop out of business and make a fortune on it, and now they're getting outgamed, you'd say, by the kids in their basement playing video games on Reddit that own some Bitcoin. They're getting outgamed, and because of that, they have to pull in all their other investments to cover their losses on GameStop. Hence, the entire market goes down. Right. And this also shines a light as far as international investing goes, where this year now, there is more investments by foreign investors going to China than there is in the United States for like the first time in like 30 years because of stuff like this. How can you trust the market systems in Wall Street when they're so rigged? And that's what these guys are showing, is the game of the whole thing. 9 investors instantly make $16 billion on GameStop. Stock squeeze. You go in there and you buy like 100 shares of GameStop at $2 a share or whatever it was, and it peaked at 500. It's quite a profit. So it says, here's a game many will like to play. How to make $1 billion in a month. 9 investors just pulled it off. Now, in this, it's not just the Bitcoiner guys and the Reddit guys. This is actually, there's some big companies that were invested in it too, because it's all pump and dump. The whole Wall Street economy and all that stuff based off borrowing money that doesn't exist. And when people say like, well, I don't know about Bitcoin and I don't know about this and that, it seems kind of sketchy. We'll stick with gold and silver. Well, gold and silver are leveraged way more than the stock market, as in like there's something like 300 times more silver certificates out there than the production of silver, meaning you're buying paper silver that is no better than having a dollar bill that reflects nothing. It's all the market is, all just kind of a sham. All told, these 9 investors made a total of $16 billion in their GameStop stake just this year. The rally in GameStop is breathtaking. Shares of struggling mall-based video game seller are up more than 1,600%. So you bought it at $2 a share times 1,600. GameStop by far is the top stock in the S&P 1500 index this month. The stock is rallying as individual investors pour into the stock. Big investors heavily shorting the stock are now forced to buy it in their closing positions. Now, see what happens is, for some reason in our crooked system, these big hedge fund companies can borrow stocks from exchanges like as much as they want. So much so that they borrowed so much stock to make GameStop fail and they could make a whole bunch of money, that they actually borrowed more stock than even was available for purchase. Like GameStop, let's say they had 100 shares, right? It's more like 100 million shares, but we'll just say they had 100 shares of stock that they could issue out onto the stock market and people could trade with and invest in the company. Well, 140 of them were actually sold. So we already have counterfeiting going on there, all because they want to short sell. And what that is when you buy a stock at $2, right? You're loaned the stock, you sell it at $2 and you hope it goes to zero. And then you just made $2, right? By the time you have to give that stock back, the price is zero. So you made the money selling the stock. You don't owe anything. Or if it goes down to $1, you made 50% profit. Well, what happens though, is if that stock goes up in price, by the time it comes around that you have to return the stock to the exchange, if you bought it at $2 a share and now it's $500 a share, you kind of have a problem. The only thing you can do is try to do an extension, which costs more and more and more money. I need another week, need another week, need another week. And that's what these hedge funds are going through right now, trying to extend it until that GameStop price falls. And to ensure that it falls, you've got the government, you've got the exchanges, you've got the Federal Reserve banks all closing down. Some exchanges are selling people stock without their permission. You cannot buy these stocks. The retail person can't. The hedge funds can. The billionaires can. And that's what the result is. It just shows has a big flashlight on there. They go, hey, this is your system. This is your system. And it's like, well, you can play around in that, or you can go move to Bitcoin, where nobody knows how much Bitcoin you've got. It's sound money. It cannot be counterfeited. Worked into the dollar bill is an inflation rate. It's worked into the dollar bill that it goes down in value just naturally, which is why back when I was a kid, savings account used to give you 2% interest. Because back when I was a kid, a bank would have to have a certain amount of cash in savings accounts in order to be able to lend out money for houses. They took all that away. And that's when your interest on your bank account went away. Okay. They no longer need to have any money. They just get it from the Federal Reserve. It's all a scam and it's all a fraud. And, as far as like fighting the system and doing something about like you can go back to like the politics and the election system, the fraud in that, and all of these different things, they all come back to money. If you really want to make a difference, diversify your assets a little bit and maybe look at something, like a crypto. Maybe I would maybe do that. I'm not too keen on keeping my money in a bank just to let the bank go loan out my money to hedge funds and do all this shady business with it. Which, that's the way it goes. It's going to be a very good year. I can see, with all of the lights been shined out, no one has any excuses about turning a blind eye to any of this stuff. It's like kind of sort of face it and deal with it and understand that's where the thing is. And we look at like the times of the mark of the beast and all of this, where everything wants to go to digital currency. And it's like, we already know that's coming. You should kind of, it's not just the dollar switches off one day and then now we have the mark of the beast. There's going to be these interim things, and might not be too bad of an idea to get used to the idea of how to maybe navigate the great reset in those seas to protect yourself. They're already talking about, because the government's out of money And now that the scam is broken out, the scam has been shined on by a bunch of Redditors who play around in Bitcoin and video games. Now that the scam has been shown, everybody can do this, right? Everybody can jump on the ship and see there's a thing here that these kids have that the generations before hadn't, and that's they've got nothing to lose. They've already squandered their futures away. They already squandered Generation X's futures away, and Gen X knew it. They didn't really do too much about it. But now Generations Y is coming in, and they actually have some moral fortitude to where if there is a cause that they're willing to just throw money at, or they're willing to, they don't care if they lose $1,000, they're going to do it. And that's what you need to do. When you do these sort of things and you're attacking these Wall Street deals, is what people do is they get in there and you get in and you start buying up the stock, and everybody's buying up the stock. The stock is skyrocketing. So you invested $1,000 and now the stock is worth 1,600% more. You can pull it out for a pretty tidy profit, especially if you're broke and you're poor, you have no prospects, and you're in your parents' basement playing video games. But it's the principle of the thing where these guys got morals and they decided, I am going to throw and lose $1,000 on this, but it's a good cause. This is what we need to do. This is an important enough cause. And some people actually legitimately like GameStop. And they're not going to pull out their money, because they pull their money out, the stock price is going to fall. And they want maximum pain, maximum hurt, maximum leverage on these hedge fund guys that get away with essentially 100% fraud, 100% murder all the time. It's just the way the business goes. So we can pay out the pensions and pay the 401k. We don't care if GameStop goes out of business. We don't care if this other guy goes out of business. We don't care about any of the consequences of any of the fraud that we're doing, because, hey, the government's happy. The union workers' pensions are paid. It's about having, a little bit of cojones to be willing to lose the $1,000 and not sell out when it goes up 1,600% to really prove the point. And it's happened in the past at some point, and in other times where Max Kaiser did the same sort of a thing against JP Morgan, was it? I don't remember off the top of my head, where they were leveraged on silver, where they were short selling silver way beyond the amount of silver that was actually in circulation. So he said, everyone, if silver is $15 an ounce, everyone go out and buy one piece of physical silver. Very important, physical silver. And you take all the physical silver off the market, the price skyrockets, and I think it was JP Morgan had to buy back all their securities at $50 a share as opposed to 15. But what happens is, as soon as the price goes up, we got all the boomers and all the Gen Xers in there. They're like, oh man, I had some money. I can go buy a new Buick. And they all sold and the price went back down. And it didn't really stick the point. These kids are sticking the point. Very much so. Very much so. And it's not about money. The reason we have the problems that we have right now in America, 1 Timothy 6:10, for the love of money is the root of all evil. While some have coveted after, they have erred from the faith and pierced themselves through with many sorrows. The reason that this GameStop thing is so successful is these people don't care. And there's millionaires putting money in it. And a lot of people are getting rich. And you think about it, it's like, if it went up 1,600% and you took your money out that you invested in it, then you're not out anything. But they're not taking their money out. They're not taking their money out. What they're doing is they're spending money on billboards to get more people to buy GameSpot to keep the price up, because they have integrity and they believe in the cause. When was the last time you invested in anything you didn't care about the consequences of it? You did it anyway. Let's go buy some billboards. All right. Well, I'll take a look at chat after my little opening rant. I'm not sure how many people in my audience. Typically, I'm doing Bible-based stuff on here, but this is pretty big news, because what we have seen with all of this stuff with, like I said, going through the virus stuff, what a sham and the medical system is. People who want to be awake. Obviously, there's people who are walking around with 3 or 4 masks on their face. Yes, sir, Fauci. Give me 2 vaccines. I don't care if all of the live animal tests killed all the animals with the vaccine. I don't care how experimental it is. Just give it to me. Obviously, there are those people. That's not who I'm talking about. People who want to wake up, want to research the stuff, want to take responsibility for their own health. Just huge light shined on the medical industry, and that huge light has been shined on the election system and how much fraud is going on in there. Okay. Huge light shined on with the things that, the Q, the whole Q narrative thing, whatever. I'm not a big believer or supporter in it. However, there's a lot of truth in the stuff that's being said with the Q things. The whole narrative, I don't know, but it gives people, an understanding and an opening to the things that are true that's being said, shines the light on what's going on in the government. Okay. This is shining the light on what's going on in the financial system, where the truth is out there. Yeah, the stock market's going to go down. It's going to be painful for some people who are invested and involved in that stuff, but it needs to happen. Do you want to be engaged in fraud all the time? That's my favorite. It's like, yeah, oh yeah, the cryptocurrency is a Ponzi scheme. Bitcoin's a Ponzi scheme or something, or it's, it seems like gambling or this and that. And it's like, well, yeah, do you have a 401k? Do you just want somebody else to gamble for you? And then there's no consequences for that, right? Is that sort of like, is that sort of like in, watching porn or something? And, I'm not engaging in the activity with the woman. Just somebody else is. Is that the justification for it? Now, I'm not the person who believes that being involved in cryptocurrency and doing investments like that there's anything negative at all with that. Even to extent gambling, I don't see where that is outlawed in the Bible, but I don't regard it as gambling. It's just simply investment. We have to deal with the world system. You can't run away with it. And the Bible talks about, investments and things like that in the Bible, where you have the man with his rich man and his 3 servants. He gives them all a shekel. It's like 1,000 silver or something like that. Gives them all a shekel and comes back, and one guy's tripled the shekels, the other guy's doubled the shekels, and one guy buried it in a yard. And the guy says, well, you could have put it in a bank and made 2%. What are you doing? Being engaged in the system of finance and things like that is taking responsibility for your stuff. This is the way that I look at it. And, it's not for everybody's thing. I'm not going to go into a big tangent about that. I'm just saying, somebody is investing money on your behalf if you have a 401k or anything like that. I think even Social Security, whatever fund they use for that, I think that one's invested too. So everybody's in on it. We'll take a look at chat here briefly. Just goes to show how completely fraudulent everything it touches the government is. Money is fake. Elections are fake. Leaders are fake. Moving to Texas. Well, they're all fake in Texas too. It's just the people are nicer. See, the thing is that you can't let this stuff get you down, because it's been like this for a long time. It's being aware of it so you can plan for the future and look for the opportunities, guys. Keep saying this. 2020 is a rough year for a lot of people because, they're out of work, or, variety of different circumstances. If you still can work, but you have to wear 3 masks and a face shield and a bunny suit to do your job, yeah, it's not very fun. But that's the time where, the light gets shined on everything. And what is it? It's always darkest before the sunrise or something like that. And look for the opportunities with this stuff. And earmark it and be aware of what's going on. Like I said, before I was saved or anything like that, when Ron Paul went around and seeing what was going on with all of the shenanigans with his campaign the first time, I was done voting. I'm like, oh, this is a total scam. Total scam. And then he went through the second time. It was even more hilarious because more people voted for him the second time. Yeah. And on and on and on and on and on down the line. And it shouldn't be giving anybody the feeling of hopelessness. It should be giving you the feeling of, hey, God, show me where I'm supposed to go then and what I'm supposed to do. And when you find things like this, where the Reddit board, I would have been completely involved in this, but I was late to the game. I didn't find out about it until like a couple of days after it had already started. But you find out about this and it's like, yeah, I got $100 to waste. I'll go buy some GameStop stock. What are you going to go do? Here's a little money to go do it. This is to shine the light on it. So, you got to look for some alternatives here, and don't count on the government fraudsters. Don't count on the bankster fraudsters. Okay. And obviously, not everybody is in great situations. It's still, ignoring these things is not going to make anything any better. All right. Ignoring that we're printing trillions upon trillions of dollars, keeping the interest rates at zero. You just don't think that's going to have an effect on anything. They're talking about, in order to get back some of the money that they're spending in the stimulus, they're talking about going after your inheritance again, which again is like largely going to be Generation Z. They have a right to be mad. And these guys are all going to be labeled as terrorists. Another one, I forgot to mention the news media. We all know what a scam and a fraud that is now, don't we? Between YouTube shutting everybody down, Facebook shutting everybody down, and now even Amazon is shutting down their web services to any right-leaning speech out there. They're labeled as terrorists by the left-wing media. Anybody who's like a Trump supporter is now like a terrorist. Now the light's been shined on that to where it's just so ridiculous. Nobody believes that stuff. Nobody. Now that you know the truth, now you're free. You don't have to pay attention to that stuff anymore. You don't have to worry about sitting around and go, whoa, when the left do it, they get away with it, but I can't, and then go cry. No, you just go, ha ha. Yeah, they really don't like us. Those media organizations and the banksters and the hedge funder guys, all those guys in 5 years will be gone. All right. Everything is so out in the open now. It is a great reset. Now, America is probably not going to be the top, what do you call it? Communist organization running the world anymore, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. From what I gathered, Britain specifically, when they lost their status as being the world ruler, the people like the peasant class, like me, life actually got a lot better. Look for that, and always, maintain what's important. Keep your faith going and do good things in that way, and build your communities. And look at very simple, easy things you can do to, protect yourself from nonsense. Buy Bitcoin. Buy Bitcoin. Critical mass, the world is a stage. Well, yeah. The people that you elect and everything they're all just puppets and actors. Max Kaiser got physical with a guy from JP Morgan and Chase, which was kind of entertaining. Show me the truth. Yeah, Max Kaiser is my new favorite internet guy to watch. I've always really liked him, but I didn't know he has his own show called the Red Pill Broadcast that I might play a little bit of, where he talks about the difference in mentalities between the baby boomers the Gen Xers and the millennials, Generation Z. And I completely agree with that. And I've always actually, my mentality, if generation, I don't hang out with a ton of Generation Z people. But it seems that my mentality is a little bit closer to that because, I grew up playing my video games and being heavily, heavily, heavily involved in computers around the computer boom and into programming and website development and all that kind of stuff. So I get what they're doing. I completely get it. I also have something of a bit of integrity where if I feel strongly about doing something, I'm going to do it. And I really don't care what the cost is. And, it's good to see that everything goes in cycles, it's good to see that that cycle is coming back. All right. And the easiest thing to do is when you see good things going on like that is to get involved, even like particularly with the financial thing, because all of this stuff is run by money, all of it, all of the fraud, I don't even want to get into the human trafficking and the pedophilia stuff. I mean, that's a huge topic under its own, but it's all financed by this fake money that's printed out of nothing that everyone's deciding what business goes forward and what business fails. And because the government and these banks are all together, the government says, well, we're going to put restrictions on this. And they tell the hedge fund people. So they already know whose stock is going to go down, right? They say they're going to put a whole bunch of restriction on organic farming. We'll just say, for instance, they'll pick an organic farm, probably the biggest one, and short sell all their stock until it's down to nothing and make $1 billion. And they go out of business and everybody's happy on the hedge fund side. And of course they have that advanced information they got from, the government and the SEC and all this stuff. So the whole thing's a scam. So where to fight this stuff is definitely the pocketbook. The old expression that says, if you want to find out what's going on with something, you follow the money. Of course. Everything, it all goes back to the money. If you want to hurt people, money is pretty meaningless to me. If the bills are paid, and maybe I can buy a guitar once every 10 years, I'm fine. Right. So with that sort of an attitude, which is how this is so powerful with this young generation, is that they know it's just ones and zeros. Okay. It is just ones and zeros. Maybe when the money is worthless, you can use it. You can use the notes to build a fire and it might be able to keep you warm. In Zimbabwe, they were wallpapering their houses with it, with their money. Everybody was a trillionaire there. Okay. But this is the way to fight, is you take away their money. What's given them so much power right at this point, and all of these corporations, we have kind of a corporatocracy, I think it's called, where the government's kind of run by the corporations. The reason that it got to that is because they can take out unlimited money. They don't have to depend on actually providing a product anymore. They don't have to depend on their customers because they just don't care. They just take out more money. They just borrow more. It's all right. We'll give it to the hedge fund guys who will defraud the entire system and I'll get 20% return back and then I'll pay off whatever my loan is. And we're still fine. We don't, Disney's been in that situation forever. And when you're in that, it doesn't matter. You don't have any say as a consumer. You don't have any say or as a voter or anything because they don't care. Their money comes from somewhere else. They serve other masters. When you take their money away, even if it is false, fake, nothing, it's air. The people who are taking it away, we don't even care about it. But these demons in these hedge fund corps there, you can see them. You can see videos on them on YouTube just crying. Oh, they took my billions, those GameStoppers. And some of them are going out into the streets and protesting this multitude of GameStop people that are all doing this stuff from their basements in between playing video games. It's pathetic. These people, that's what their life is. Defrauding people, putting people out of business, bad investments on purpose, collusion. And then when they finally get hit, who comes to the rescue? Uncle Sam. You bet. And it's laughable. And there's no reason to get mad about it either. There's no reason to get mad like, oh, there goes more tax dollars. It's like, that game is over. It's done. We're moving ahead. We got a brighter future now. We can attack their money supply. Look, a 20-year-old gamer kid is always going to be out in front of the system. You're not going to catch that kid in a digital arms race. No way. No way. So I am very positive for the future. And, this is one of many examples. Now that it has been tested and proven positive that it can't really even be stopped without shutting down the market, they're going after, if I was an investor doing short sales, I would immediately go after the movie theaters, which is what they did. They short sailed and leveraged AMC movie theaters out through the roof. And of course, the Redditors caught that and jacked up AMC to where they have to stop trading on AMC so that the big boys don't lose too much money. And there's a handful of other ones. Now they're going to go after silver, and they got to shut off the silver trade. And now think about this. All it is, turning off the trading, is preventing these bad actors from losing more money than what they lost. It's like placing a bad bet, right? And when you lose, you pass your losses off to your taxpayer people. But when you win, you keep the money. I'm loving it. But it does take, it's not like just throwing money at it. You do have to sit there and not get the greedy eyes when the $100 you invested goes up to $10,000. It has to sit there, because you got to remember at the end of the day, your investment was $100. As long as you get $100 back, you're fine. Or even if you lose the $100, you should always expect when you invest to just lose everything. But that's some temptation, isn't it? When you're invested in a stock that goes from $2 to 580 or something it was. EQ nostalgia, stock up some food, have a Bible and a journal and some bullets and a gun. When you're raptured, someone's going to stumble into your shack and get himself saved. Yeah, that's the idea. I mean, I try not to be doom and gloomer, but I'm not going to sugarcoat the truth too much. And things like having a gun is something that everyone should have. You should express your rights, just for the simple fact that people in this country, in America, are allowed to have guns. You should take advantage of that right. It's almost your civic duty, all right, in America, because it's like the last country on the planet where your regular citizen can own a firearm, right? So you should be taking part in that as an American and doing that. And this is more relevant to like the cities and stuff, is if you live in cities, you're 100% dependent on the supply chain. And if you have a hurricane or a tornado come through, or just a bad snowstorm, right? You can be without your supply chain for some time, and you should have food and things like that stored up. I mean, it's just basic stuff. But if you're out in the country and you're not in the cities, which is always kind of recommended, you can have your preserves and you have your garden and you have maybe your animals or chickens or something, you're going to be fine. And yeah, you can just look at like stockpiling. If it's not used, then the person who finds your stuff is going to have a heyday, and good for them. Good for them. Iona Caddy says, maybe this is the black swan they've been worried about. Oh, there was a meme on that too. It was a green swan. But the thing is that this is how the stock markets work. This is how crypto works. They're all pump and dump. All of them. That's how all of the money is made on all of the markets. Doesn't have really much of anything to do with what the business actually does. As Elon Musk will prove to you with his Tesla stock being $800 a share, it went up to and peaked at. Tesla doesn't hardly make any cars. So it's completely not tied to what the guy actually does. It's just people like Elon Musk and a whole bunch of big investors moved money into his stock, so it drove the price up. And when people saw the price action go up, they bought into it. They go, oh, these big investors know something that I don't know. I'm going to follow that. Okay. And then it goes up to a peak where all the initial investors who all teamed up and invested hundreds of billions of dollars in stock because they all called each other on the phone. And then they called up Mr. International Bank and said, yeah, could you borrow us $100 billion? We're going to do a stock option on Elon Musk. And they're like, sure. And then they put in all this money. And then when we get up to the top, then their time runs out and then they sell their stock after that gain. That's the pump. And then you got the dump. And all the people who initiated that pump, they're making out like bandits. Okay. And then there's all the people on the dump side who are going down wondering what happened to the company? Why is it all of a sudden going down? And before they can even get out, you know, they're down at what they invested at or even lower. And that is what happens to every stock on a daily basis, especially in the crypto world. In the crypto world, it's more like an hour. You have a pump for an hour, then you've got a dump. Just how it is. But that's how the system works. Now, when you look over in a trend and like something like Bitcoin, which is the one that's been around the longest since 2008, you look up over the last 12 years of its existence, it's gone up by like 100% every year. Sure, it dumps. There is one point it dumped from $10,000 down to $3,500. But even if you look at that dump at the beginning of the year, it was trading at like around 1,000 or something. So even though it lost 40% of what it was worth, it's still worth more than what it was at the beginning of the year. Like, right now, Bitcoin just dropped $10,000 like a week ago. And it's like, so what? It's still up $10,000 from where it was 2 months before that. I mean, there's market volatility, of course, but over the long chain, there's a nice, healthy growth and profit in that. Joe Crab Tea put our faith in Christ. Well, of course, they're not mutually exclusive. I mean, it's like you can't have faith in Christ and buy some cryptocurrency and look after your finances and to make sure that your 401k isn't investing money into companies you hate like Monsanto. Just if you love Monsanto, I'm just saying, I don't personally care for them and I don't care for the Bill Gates Foundation, but if that's where your 401k money is going, maybe you wouldn't want that. Most people just don't want to know about it. You can play like the baby boomers and say la 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 la, and then go buy a Buick with your stock options. And I'm not. Of course, I'm hard on the boomers because they came before me. But Gen X isn't very much better. The same still sort of attitude. Not much has changed. Gen X are the ones who are more or less running the show right now. Would be like 40-year-olds to 55-year-olds or something, up into like almost 60s. They're sort of the guys that are in charge. They ain't doing much better, are they? Oh, no. 2020 is when all this stuff is coming out. They don't want any of us out in the country independent of them. Well, they're in a tough position where they have to please the masses. Otherwise, you have these revolts going, and they kind of don't want that. Generally, if you have your own thing going, you don't care what the government does, and the government doesn't care what you do, which is kind of where I want to be at. I can't afford to move to the country yet, though. I'm in a small town, though, that has its own problems. Need to bring in prayer. It's our power. Sure. The amount of Christians, actual true Christians in America, though, is pretty small. And when you're talking about political change and you're talking about shining a light and getting the fraudsters out and doing positive moves like that, that affects everybody. It's not just Christians. You'd be like, what do they call that? village building or something, community building. I forgot what the term is for it. Nostalgia says, whole global warming thing helped to not only ship our industry to the communists, transferring global power, gave them an excuse to burn our farmlands. Well, I mean, that was the baby boomers, essentially. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the deal was with that. I mean, why you would ever think it's a good idea to let all your businesses go to China, who you had a trade embargo with. China had to trade through Hong Kong up until Bill Clinton, and Bill Clinton removed the trade embargo and then put them in NAFTA. So it's like free trade. Like, what? That's not like a 180. That's like being enemies and then, sending your daughters over there. It's like really weird. And that was before my political time or before I paid much attention to any of that stuff. But I do remember the Saturn car company, where it was birthed into existence when I was probably 15 or 16. And their big thing was a big push for Buy American back then. Okay. Even Walmart. You used to go to Walmart because everything at Walmart was made in America. Okay. That was their slogan. Not that long ago. So Saturn had a car company that they wanted that was built in America by Americans, and that was their thing. All right. They were really good cars back then too. But they couldn't compete. They couldn't compete at the level with everybody who was having their things built in Mexico for considerably lower wages and no union dues and nothing. And then just moving the car up because of NAFTA. So what ended up happening was it was a deal of these companies wanted to stay. These companies are like, hey, made in America, support America, support America, support America. And of course, Saturn went out of business, got bought up by Ford or something. And Walmart went 100% China after being all proud about being made in America. And it turns out the generation cared more about lollipops for half a nickel than anything else in the world. Having cheap crap to purchase was the most important thing to them. And the government just said, fine, we'll do it. You got to understand that it's not all the fraud and all this stuff that goes on in the government. It's people letting it happen. All right. Now, there's a lot of people who don't want to be aware of it and spend a lot of time entertaining themselves so they don't have to actually interact with the real world. But the people allow stuff to happen. All right. You don't think abortion could have been gone by now if people really wanted that gone? Yes. But let's not kid ourselves here. Oh, and about the one more thing about like Bitcoin and stuff like that. I want you guys to let you know the number one Bitcoin miner. I don't have time to get into how mining works and all that stuff, but the number one country that's Bitcoin mining right now in the world is China. They do 80% of the Bitcoin mining. And now that America is tanking, they immediately built a facility to try and rival what China is doing, investing in Bitcoin. Major companies like I think Blackwater or Grayscale are one of those, investing billions into Bitcoin. Other major companies and Elon Musk investing in Bitcoin. Okay. This is not something that's going to go anywhere. Just saying. And the real reason that like cryptocurrency is not used for the standard currencies, I think I had mentioned about XRP for doing things like cross-border payments to make them take fractions of a second as opposed to a week. When you want to send a couple $100s to some other country, to someone relative in a country, it takes like a week for your money to actually get there. The reason that they don't want to go to a crypto is because they can't siphon or steal any money off the top, because all of the transaction in that crypto coin are there when it starts and when it shows up. The entire audit system, audit trail for the entire crypto is built into the money itself. And when you have a system like that, you can't defraud it. So no, we want our fake paper dollars or our fake digital dollars that we can print up, call up the Federal Reserve, beep, boop, boop, boop. There's $2 trillion for you. That's what they want. And that's what the resistance is to it. But we're finding out with the Reddit guys here that if you want to play that game and live in nonsense world with nonsense money, we can play that game. And because they know that it's nonsense, they don't care. They don't care if their profits go to zero because they're only invested for a small amount and it's a lot of people. Okay. They do it just for the cause. And Nostalgia remembers yeah, you're an old man. You're playing EverQuest, man. I know you're old. You remember the Walmart stuff in the 90s, right? Walmart wasn't even that huge of an organization. They weren't, I don't even think they were US wide back then. They had a lot of stores, but they weren't anywhere near as what they are today. No American citizen wants to give $4 billion to Egypt, to Iran. And yeah, that's what our stimulus package was. I think when you see like these billions of dollars going out to these other countries, I think it's just a buy off to say, hey, please keep using our money. I think there's a lot involved in that. I mean, when you have fraud on such a massive scale like that, you got to expect that all the people are just bought out, all the real decision makers. Resistance to the tyranny is usually going after their pocketbooks and their scaredy cats. Well, yeah, I mean, that's what the government will do to you. And these guys, these demonic, Satan worshiping, I have a lot more adjectives to use. Those people are tremendously scared of the people. Why? They live in fear because they know what they do all day long. Okay. They don't have consciences though. They seared them like a hot iron, but it weighs on them to where they're like, if anybody knew, found out, because they know themselves, if they found out someone was doing what they were doing, they would kill them. Okay. If they were at the receiving end of getting put out of business by their hedge fund just because they're JP Morgan and Chase and all these guys went into a deal to decide to short sell your company and put you out of business. If you're at the other end of that and if you personally knew the person who was in charge of that person would probably kill them. And they're walking around with this times 100 every single day that they go on these little fraudster schemes. They know that. Okay. That's why they have all sorts of addiction problems and all sorts of other problems, is to keep the mind off that. It's not necessarily a moral thing, like their conscience is bothering them. It's that they're afraid of retribution from the people. When you shine the light on all them nasty little deeds that they're doing, they get very afraid, very afraid. And likely they should be, which is why the Q narrative, if anything becomes of that, that's going to be real interesting. Because apparently a lot of all these people, what they all have in common is they like the little kids. I'd hope that's not as bad as what Q says it is, but I don't have any reason not to believe that things are that bad in the system. Because how else would you keep ordinarily good people or people that are somewhat moral? How else would you keep them in line except blackmail and stuff like that? How would it even happen? Why have the same people like been in office and been in these CEO, corporate hedge fund CEO guys, then they go into being chairman of the SEC, then they come back out, and all these guys have a rotating in and out of corporations and in and out of government long up until basically the day they die. And it's like, why is nobody voting these people out? Just coincidence. I mean, just by happenstance. Well, these people are bought and paid for, and they're going to spend a lot of money to make sure they get in. Hey, that's how you do it. And it's not like It's just a rational business choice. You can't look at it and being all emotional about how could they do this and blah, 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 blah. Look, Christians, you have to understand that people lie and people aren't going to have the same moral character as a Christian. And like I'm in the Midwest and everybody walks around in the Midwest like everybody else is just a total saint, right? Until you get into an argument with your girlfriend and you're thrown in jail for a weekend, then you're a demon. Then you're a certified demon for the rest of your life. You can point over at that person that got in an argument with their girlfriend and go, that's the bad man right there. But everybody else, I'll believe you like it's the gospel, unless you're talking about something like flat earth, or you're talking about the fraud in the election system, or you're talking about any of that. Then I'm like, la, 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 where's my Buick? Really like that new Buick they're coming out with. Yeah, nostalgia. I actually did want to talk about that, and I'm glad you brought that up. Talking about the vaccines and how they. I mean, they'd like to link it into everything, but look, the light has been shined so much on all of this stuff that none of that's going to happen. They'll try it. The news will say this is happening and blah blah. The sky is falling. That's what the news is going to say, but it's not reality. All right. There's too much light. It's been shined on everything. Everything. The whole paradigm is going to change now. The whole thing. Okay. And yes, there's going to be, growing pains going into a new system and navigating a new way that things are going to work. But the old guard knows that they've kind of lost it now. They don't have control over the finances like they thought that they did. And it goes to show you where, as to whether or not you should have Bitcoin, it goes to show you when they're doing these things like they're impeaching Trump. He's not even in office. Does that make any sense? No, we're in clown world, right? Oh, we have to shut down Trump's bank accounts, even though he's not president anymore. Why? I don't know. We're in clown world. We got to kick him off Twitter. Why? I don't know. We need to kick off anybody who supported him in any way off Twitter. We're going to call them white supremacists now. That's ridiculous. Well, I don't care. That's just the way that I feel. And that's what we're going to do. It's total clown show. Everybody knows it. The right, the left. The only one who hasn't figured it out yet are the people who are paying these news agencies to try and cover everything up and to try and whitewash everything. Like it's all, no, look at these terrible people over here. Look at these. It's the gamers. They're going after the Redditors now who are buying the GameSpot stock and calling them like terrorists. They're calling them something extremist or something like that. Right? We're talking about kids in their parents' basement playing video games because they can't get a job anymore because the economy is shot. Right? That's the new the new terrorists. I don't even know what we're on anymore. I mean, it was like the Muslims for a while, and then it was straight white men for a while, and then now it was Trump, and now we're at people who hang out on Reddit and buy cheap stock from failing businesses. That's our public enemy now, right? It's gotten clown show. And yes, they're getting to the point where if they don't like what you say on any of these platforms, they just turned it off. And maybe turn the bank off, or maybe turn this off or that off, which is why I say reduce your dependency on these things. Okay. That's it. Reduce dependency on these things. And don't be surprised. You leave a comment on some page calling somebody an idiot, and then they ban you off Facebook. Someone says something stupid, you make an innocent comment, banned off Facebook. It doesn't matter. Does not matter at all. Move on to the next thing. Wait for Facebook to collapse. They're getting sued by every country in the world. Same with Google. I think it was the Poles in Poland, I want to say. I think it was the Poles or the Danish, one of them. They're suing. They're making it so that Google and Facebook, they cannot remove your post or delete your channel unless you actually break the laws in their country. I think that's going to be the way that a lot of these things are going to go, but you never know. There's some actual action being taken now that people are waking up. We've shined the light. This is your system. Do you want to fix it, or do you want to hang out with it? Okay. And like I said, This isn't to be a downer thing. It's to be looking for, oh, great. Everybody knows everything's a scam now. Minus the people that are wearing masks, with the 4 masks on that believe Fauci. You don't even have to pay attention to them. You can just keep them out of the equation, right? We're going to go to the people who are thinking, who actually want the truth, who have a reason not to fear anything because they have God on their side, right? They're not going to make it. They're not going to make it so you have to take a vaccine. They're pulling a lot of those vaccines off because there's too high of too many people getting injured for one of them. And the other one's kind of on the same track as that, too many injuries. So what they're doing is they're blaming it on a new strain of COVID. And with all the lights being shined off everything, that's not going to go anywhere either. Like I said, guys, bide your time. Don't fight people over the masks. Don't fight, throw down at your stores or whatever. If you can get by going, hey, I'm exempt, or I got my vaccine, I'm exempt, whatever you want to say, then good. If people want to harass you and start a fight, man, it's not worth it. Just keep your heads down. Just give it a few more months. We'll give it a few more months. And things are getting changed right now. Things are getting changed. Now we figured out how to hit them in the pocketbook. Then they kind of have to listen, don't they? They don't have any more money. All we can do is anchor ourselves in Christ. Absolutely. Really. Is not participate in this stuff. And, don't trouble yourself with, what is that? 1 Peter 5:7 or 2 Peter 5:7. You don't lay all your worries on Christ. All right. Worry about your day-to-day stuff, saying hi to your neighbor, walking your dog, all the things you normally do. And don't worry about all this nonsense if it doesn't affect you. Only worry about what you have to worry about. And then give some consideration to, well, if I get a stimulus check for $1,200, I might want to put it into Bitcoin or some other asset. All right. Some other asset. Don't just let it sit in your bank account. Maybe pay off debt if you have debt, right? Be thinking about things like that. If you're dependent on public transportation, maybe buy a bicycle. They're pretty cheap. Just in case you don't have that option, you need to get somewhere. Simple things. And the other thing too is, if they get really desperate, they might shut down the internet. They would have to do that for America to put in a lot of controls and things that they have talked about. And, they haven't done it yet, but if they get really desperate, they'll do that. So don't plan on your Facebook and all that stuff. You got to invest in people and maybe start looking at alternatives to the main things, because there's no point. For the most part, everybody that I watch, with the exception, I think, of Max Kaiser, has been kicked off YouTube. Yeah, Max Kaiser and like a couple of video game channels, which don't count. Of course, Ed's on YouTube, and a lot of the Christian channels are on YouTube. James Knox is still there, but I'm talking about, where I would get my news from and what's actually going on. Okay. They've all been kicked off. Facebook, I've never had. I had a Facebook when it first came out, 2008, and deleted my account a long time ago. Haven't really looked at it. It's like, don't build a dependence on that. There's always going to be Facebook. There's always going to be YouTube. It's like YouTube has sort of already outlived its expected, tech companies typically go for about 10 years. And, the next big thing, be ahead of the curve and how you can deal without having these things. War-torn Germany with their treaty. Oh yeah, that's the World War II. The World War II narrative is all messed up, but I can't get into that. That will get me kicked off. I'll still talk about it. Maybe that'll be up on library. Oh yeah, sub to me on Odysee. It gives me money. Just subscribe to me. Not much, like a penny, but it's something. It's crypto. You got to be a part of it, you know. You gotta kind of, if you decide you don't trust the US dollar and you don't like all the fraud with it, you don't like it's all just a big game and there's no real value in the dollar. If you don't like any of that stuff, then you have to embrace crypto at some point. You have to, like Odysee library, it's free crypto they just give to you just for watching videos on their platform. Or if you're people like me, if you produce content and you upload to their platform, they pay you also. And for people who watch your stuff, right? But it's paid in crypto. It's very non-intrusive way to get involved in the system, right? And then after you've clicked around a bit, and I'm using Brave browser that gives you crypto too. After you've built up a bit, then maybe you could join an exchange or something like that and see what you got. I mean, it's and gradually learn more about that stuff just to make yourself more independent and have more control over your own stuff. I mean, we'll just have the paradigm right now of the reason that all this stuff happens in the banking system and the laws are set up for these big banks is to perpetually fraud everybody. The whole system is based on fraud. All right. And the people who have to pay for all that fraud is always at the bottom of the pyramid. That would be us. Now, if you want to protect your assets and protect yourself from that sort of thing, because you never know what they're going to do. You might get one day where you got like, yeah, I got 50 grand in the bank, I'm doing good, I'm doing that and doing this. And they could put through some policy where it's like, no, $2 trillion stimulus wasn't enough. Let's do $400 trillion. And there's nothing you can do about it. And your money went from being worth 50 grand to the equivalent of being worth about $1. Okay. Just how it works. You don't have any control over it. And if you need a loan, you got to go to the bank. And if you got to go do this, you got to go to the bank. And if you said something the bank doesn't like, apparently the bank can turn your account off. Or if you owe $50 in back taxes to your state government and you didn't get the notice, they close your account with a couple of thousand in it instead of just taking the money that you owe them. Happened to me. They closed my account right at payday because I owed them $50. Which is why you don't ever have them digitally deposit your check in your account. Because if there's any goof ups anywhere, they have your account number and they use it immediately. They don't tell you, but that's neither here nor there. So anyways, when you have a cryptocurrency, I would really only suggest Bitcoin for someone who's never been involved in it. But like, say you have a Bitcoin, you're your own bank. You can make your own loans. You can make your own whatever. Okay. You're your own bank. If the dollar fails, you don't care. If whatever other country's currency fails, you don't care. And there has never been a paper currency in the history of the world that's ever succeeded. Okay. They've all gone to zero. They've all gone away, which is why people invest in gold. However, with the laws favoring, of course, the banksters, the price of gold is being held at like $1,800, which is ridiculous. It should be at like 3,000 or 4,000. That means that for as much actual, real hard, tangible gold that they have, they're printing out certificates saying they owe you an ounce and we owe you an ounce and we owe you an ounce and we owe you an ounce. Meanwhile, they don't even have an ounce of gold on them to even sell to you. That's how fraudulent the system is. That's impossible in Bitcoin. Completely impossible. You cannot make up Bitcoin. That's what Bitcoin mining is actually testing the integrity of every single transaction. That's all the way back to the start of the very first Bitcoin and every transaction all the way up to the newest Bitcoin, where they're mining to get another Bitcoin, which is going through and checking the integrity of all of the other coins behind it. And all of the information from all those other coins is in the coin at the end. You can't defraud anything in that. There are many people that say that it's actually better money than gold and silver. I'm not going to go that far with it, but it's certainly not one you can do a lot of trickery with. You can't really do much scamming with it. Fiat currency, yeah. Nostalgia had 90% of your inheritance stolen. Oh yeah. Yeah. I don't know if I mentioned it. I was going to mention it, where the tax laws that are coming in, where they want to get their money back so they can try and pretend to pay the next generation or the senior citizens in the homes and pay for their care, or all whatever they promised them. When they eventually die, all of their assets, like their house, okay, they want to put a tax in where whatever your parents bought their house at, um, say like $30,000 in 1990, they bought their house. And then when they die, they give it to you and it's worth $350,000. They want to tax you on the $320,000 that the house is increased in value during the time of your parents' possession. Okay. That's a plan that was in the works. And I don't know what other kind of assets that's going to go to, but again, this is going to push that universal basic income. No one's allowed to have any money. We're going to tax you to death and do all this stuff. And look, Generation Y and the millennials and these Reddit guys on there and these gamer guys are like, I'm just going to put all my money in Bitcoin. What are you going to do that? They can't get it. I'm going to put all my money in Monero. What are you going to do? The money doesn't exist. And if you're not operating in Federal Reserve notes, you don't have any taxable obligations for anything anyway. Okay. All that crap is based around the dollar. But their attitude with the GameStop is, oh, you think you're going to sell my future up the river, and you think that you're going to put in all of these regulations to say that I can't make money? Well, we'll see how that works out for you. And now they're going on the attack and looking for all these vulnerabilities that have existed for years upon years upon years upon years that nobody wants to do anything about because, hey, they like the fact that their 401k goes up 20% every year. They don't care where the money comes from or how that's even possible without it being a Ponzi scheme. They don't care about that, just as long as they see that number go up. That maybe they can take a little bit out so they can get that bigger house, get that boat. We need that boat. Retirement. At the rate my 401k is going, I'm going to have millions. 20% a year. Right. That's the attitude. Then you say, no, that's all based on fraud. They're like, oh, that's impossible. Hey. Yep. I don't know if anybody's got any questions. I kind of just wanted to touch on this, and I'm going to start doing a thing where when I answer questions or talk about a topic, it takes a while for my live stream to actually like cross over to YouTube land, and then go up to Odysee. And during that time, I'm going to try to put time index codes. So where if I talk about something, a particular thing, you could just click on the thing. So you don't have to listen to me drone on and carry on and go on my little tirades all about blah, 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 whatever it happens to be. You can just click on the link and it'll go right to what I'm talking about, what you're interested in. So we're going to try that with this one. So I can have a wide variety of things we'll talk about here. But that I did want to talk about this one today because it is so relevant and still going on right now. For the future, which is still going to take me some bit of time to put together, is I know I talked about the Owen Benjamin thing kind of going to new age stuff and the flat earth crowd and all of that. And it's getting more and more prevalent, I guess, in like some of the people in like the flat earth community and the truther movement and things like that. People come to the truth, it seems. And then because of the logic of them coming to the truth, say like with flat earth, it matches what the Bible says perfectly, right? So a person who comes and says, okay, well, I believe the earth is flat, so obviously there's God now. And then they said, yeah, well, the Christian Bible's got all the stuff in it for you. And this is the gospel, how you get saved. And these people go, oh, great. But now they're so hung up in the truther movement. Then they think that, oh, well, maybe the Bible has been grabbled. Maybe there's lies in the Bible. Maybe it wasn't translated right. This Bible says this thing. This Bible says this thing. The Quran over here says this. And it kind of sounds like maybe that is. And we've got David Icke over here who says this. Maybe somewhere in there I can pick and choose what my truths are going to be, because I had to walk this journey myself, going through all of this stuff to get into, these different movements about, what's going on Wall Street, for instance, or what's going on with the elections, or what's going on with Bitcoin, what's going on with GameStop. You're coming to all these truths. So then you come into Christianity and you're like, okay, where's the actual truth in Christianity? Because it can't just be the whole thing. So you listen to these guys, and when they're talking about the things that they're learning about, like ancient societies and things, on very, very interesting stuff, about how a lot of the buildings that we have, there's no way that they were built by us when they say they were built. Most of those Capitol looking buildings and Roman looking buildings and stuff, there's no way they built those when they said they built them. But that's beside the point. It's a good piece of truth, very good, interesting stuff. Or you get into stuff talking about the flat earth. Okay, very good. But then, because now they are aware that there is God, they logically cannot avoid the fact that there is God. And they think that they're Christian. And then they go out and they want to talk all about working your way to heaven, and talk about how, Jesus wasn't his real name. That was a translation that they did. And it was the Vatican Church that did this and that. And you can't use the name of God. You can't say Jesus, because Jesus wasn't a name that existed. And J didn't even exist in the Hebrew language. And we got to go to church on Saturdays, and you can't eat meat. And really, we're saving ourselves when we that's how we get to heaven. Okay. I want to talk a lot about that, because this young generation that's doing the GameStop thing, right, are all full of piss and vinegar. All right. And I was kind of the same way. I know exactly where they're coming from, but there is a large body of people who are waking up in that generation that are doing this stuff and coming to all of these truths, and are really passing around a lot of crap when it comes to Christianity and the Bible and all of that. So that will be a live stream that I still have to put together some more things on, fun videos and things like that, and maybe get Frank on here. I haven't seen Frank up here yet, but maybe get a partner in crime, so I'm just not up here rambling by myself the whole time. This is not easy. Up here rambling and talking for, what am I at? I have no idea. Hour? Yeah. Hour and 15. Just when did they begin this land tax nonsense? Anyway, land taxes came after the Civil War. Everything changed the Civil War. And that's a big fight and argument that me and Ed completely disagree on. And that's where that would go if I go down that path again. And I don't care enough about the Civil War to talk about it, but that essentially the America was taken over by a foreign government at that time. And in order to pay the debts on the war, they had to have a land tax. They had to do all this stuff. The big reason for the Louisiana Purchase, which wasn't really a purchase, because we bought it from like Spain, and Spain didn't own the land either. The Native Americans were the ones who were there. Spain just said, if you give us money, we won't attack you. That's what that was. So, right. They did that. And immediately, we're going to have a war with the South and pick a fight with the South just so we can take them over. And then when our mercenary troops show up, we send them west to go kill a bunch of Indians as opposed to going south. And all of that tax nonsense, all of the marriage license stuff, the Uniform Commercial Code rolled into America. Federal Reserve System kind of sort of came in around that time. It wasn't really until like 1913 where it really took over. But still, the same guys who did the Federal Reserve were here during the Civil War, and that's where Lincoln got all his money from. I covered that in my Civil War video. So really, that's where it came from. And it wasn't a civil war. It was the people versus foreign invaders. That's what that war was. And yeah, everyone can have a disagreeing opinion on that, but that's, people are worried about a civil war now. And I'm like, well, it's not going to be a civil war, because the military is not going to go rip their own grandmothers out of their houses to do anything with them. I mean, I don't see that happening. The soldiers in the military have always been heavy right leaning. Okay. You don't think that those soldiers see all this liberal nonsense that's going on with YouTube declaring everybody who voted for Trump terrorists? You don't think that they see that? And do you think that those troops are the same hardcore troops, the hoo-ah troops, now that they've got social distancing, masks, they've got a completely intermixed genders all throughout the military, and you can be trans, it's fine. You can be gay, it's fine. You don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, or we'll give you an Article 15. You think those guys are going to come kick your door in? No. No. And this is, again, why it's your civil duty to own a firearm. Because the more firearms that are out there, the more prevention it is from the government to get any sort of crazy schemes like allowing China to come in here or some other thing through a false flag. The more guns that are out there in the people's hands, the less that is going to be on the table. So, yes. Nostalgia says truth movement can lead to Christ. Yeah, that's how I got here. But you have to be very diligent, and you have to be pretty logical in your thinking in order to get out of what seems to be coherent and logical. When you get into Christianity, it's like a Seventh-day Adventist. After going through all of the truther movement stuff and trying to figure out the Bible on my own, listen to all these different people, I weighed all the arguments and came to a coherent conclusion that Seventh-day Adventism seems to be the closest to what the Bible is talking about. And that's where I ended up. Of course, it wasn't correct. And eventually I got out of that because it wasn't right. And I'm always diligent in looking for the truth. But not everybody is like that. And you take some guy up there like Owen Benjamin, who is like a brand spanking new Christian, thinks he knows everything about everything about everything about everything. Really, on fire, and has all of these opinions and ideas and mocks Christianity, and makes fun of this, that, and the other thing about Christianity, completely doesn't understand the gospel. So he's obviously not even a Christian, but he said it doesn't matter if he's a Christian or not. He says he is. That influences a tremendous amount of people that will go out there and go, well, yeah, I guess I'm a Christian. I'm an Islamo-Christian too. Right? And that's a very, very, very bad thing. So I got to deal with that. And I did challenge a couple of these guys out to debates, a modern day debate. So if any of them accept, you can check me out up there. Them and their work salvation, new age nonsense garbage. That's these flat earthers that aren't typically, religious people. They have to accept God now, right? Whatever nonsense they were involved in before, if they accept the earth is flat, they have to believe in a God. So now they have to go figure out who God is, right? And man, they're causing some issues, because you see the people in the comments where just thousands of comments on these things about a lot of the people agreeing, and like 5% dissension, 5% going, you have no idea what you're talking about, right? But a lot of people who don't know any better are getting caught up in it. And it's like, yeah, great that you're coming to Christ and you're trying to figure your way out, but don't call yourself a Christian yet. Oh, no. War is horrible. Yes, Daryl, war is horrible. And that will be the next thing to try and get some money going, because now they're getting killed on the stock market by these pathetic Generation Y people who are playing video games because the economy is all screwed up. Those pathetic people have shut down Wall Street. They did what Generation X is out there with their signs and their petitions, thinking that the government system actually did something. Their signs and their petitions and their bullhorns. What good did it do? It raised awareness that the Federal Reserve is a private bank. That's about all. That's it. What is this going to do? But these young guys in here absolutely destroying these hedge funds, destroying them. They're going bankrupt. Companies with $50 billion in assets having to take out loans because they can't cover their losses. What do you think has more of an effect? Of course, there's nothing saying that you can't do both. And it's like this either or attitude. It's like, no, you can do all of it. It's like the comment was to have faith in Jesus. It's like, yeah, well, I can play the markets and have faith in Jesus too. I can do that. I'm not a Denlinger, right? I'm not a Denlinger who decided I'm going to be a lumberjack. And then he said, I don't want to be a lumberjack. I want to be a wood turner. And then in the middle of the night, God told him to go be a preacher. So therefore, he couldn't be a wood turner anymore. He had to be a preacher because he doesn't have time for wood turning. He can't wood turn and preach. That would just be overwhelming, right? I am not a Denlinger. I try to be involved in as many things, particularly right now. Many more things than I've ever been involved in before, learning about more new things. I didn't know anything about woodworking at all. Okay. It's like, this is a skill I probably need to know. You want to know why? Because of all this printing of all the money, all the printing of all the money, all of your commodities are through the roof now. Have you tried to buy a 2x4 lately? Didn't they used to cost about $2 before? $2 to $3 for an 8-foot long 2x4 to build your shed. They're up over $10 now. If you look on the commodities market, it's $900 for 1,000 square feet. It's never been that high before. Other commodities are the same. All of these real world things that people use. And there is some things that have some influence on it. Obviously coronavirus, but look at this. These guys are woodworkers where they're cutting trees down out in the fresh air. They're not wearing masks. They're social distancing all the time. How much could that really slow it down? Been like that for a year now. All right. So I'm like, okay, the price of wood is going to be very expensive. I should probably learn how to do something with it. Maybe with some of the trees, these people that they trim trees around here all the time. Maybe I can figure out something to do with some of these trees, process some of this wood, learn how to do some of this stuff. Right? Maybe I can learn about how cryptocurrencies work. I've always been on the growing your own food stuff. It's just, we're still struggling with that, right? We're still struggling. Just even learning something or reading a book or try to, make progress in something. You don't want to sit stagnant and just be like, oh, the government's all bad. Wall Street's all bad and YouTube's all bad and Facebook's all bad. And I'm like, no, it's great. Everything is great right now. The light has been shined on all these things and all these little rats go scurrying everywhere. It's great. It means we're finally going to get some rejuvenation into the system where it's like, finally, hopefully we get some like non-fraudulent activity going on. Hopefully some people go to jail for their criminal stuff. But if not, whatever. At least people know what they're getting involved in when they invest in these phony things like hedge funds, 401ks, and all this crap, right? And invest in yourself, into real things, learning new things. That's what I've been doing. Having a great time. And my future is more uncertain right now than it was, a year ago or 2 years ago or whatever. And that's, it is what it is. You got to keep your faith in Christ and just keep going, keep moving, keep doing. War in Iran is likely with Creepy Joe. Yeah. They better not have to draft anyone because no one's going. Have I heard of Show Me the Truth asked me about High Impact Flicks. Has some good content. I had Pure Flicks for a while. And I enjoyed Pure Flicks, but there's only so much you can watch on there. And yeah. Struggling with food growing. Yeah, my soil is very bad because my town has a very, very high water table, almost like there's just a little bit of a dirt on a lake. So because of that, the soil is very a lot of clay in it. So really have to build up the soil, throw a lot of junk in there. And, some things grow good. They grow really, really, really good. And then right towards the end of the season, they kind of just develop, like the tomatoes will get sick or something. I haven't figured all of it out. Mostly everything is going to a raised bed to alleviate a lot of those problems, but that's a lot more work. And then you're stuck with it. It's kind of like, well, now you have to do it every year, which, wouldn't be a problem if we were getting a lot of stuff out of it, but I don't know. I get a fence up them, it's going to be chickens. So anything that comes out of the garden, I'm not going to eat. It just goes to chickens, and then we'll do that. And just always got to keep moving on, moving forward. Bacon Toast says all a bunch of nonsense. People forget all about GameStop Wall Street by the end of the week. I am surprised that it's getting reported on, because if I was those hedge fund managers, I would not tell anybody anything. I would go immediately to the government and say, you got to help us turn this stuff off. And I would not shine any lights on the GameStop people, because you're letting the people know that they actually can fight big business and win, and exactly how to do it too. I mean, there's the jig is out of the bag. When you understand how short selling works, you can find it and look up what stocks are being short sold at and at what rates. And you can go to Reddit yourself and say, I'm putting $1,000 into this, and here's why. I suggest you all join me. And this is what the hedge funds all do. They do the exact same thing, except they don't use Reddit. They call the president, or they call their favorite congressman. And everybody, all the congressmen, it's legal. They passed a law to where it's legal to be an insider trader if you're part of Congress. So all the Congress guys, as they're sitting around in their saunas, are talking to each other and go, okay, we're all going to invest in XYZ stock at 8:00 tomorrow, and we're all going to get rich. Hoorah. And that's how it works. Okay. That's the way that it's been working for 30 years. But if you do that on Reddit, now you're a domestic terrorist, because you're just a little slave boy. Little slave boys, we can't have you getting rich. So we'll have all of these restrictions and roadblocks and all of this in place for you. The wave of the future is coming, though. The wave of the future is coming. But these people who have made millions of dollars, these 20-year-old kids making millions of dollars in crypto, millions of dollars in messing with Wall Street, you think they're just going to go away? No. The end is near. The old election system where we're just have it electronic voting, where there's no checks and balances in anything. We're just going to have YouTube and Facebook are going to run our new social policies. No, we're just going to let Wall Street keep defrauding everybody and the Federal Reserve. Nah, the lights have been shined. It's done. It's done. It's just a decaying system from here on out, right? New group is taking charge. Keyboard terrorists, yeah, they can call them what they want. But the funny thing is they want to blame it on Redditors. But, you got probably guys like Elon Musk in there too. Now, keep in mind the way that cryptocurrencies work. If you are ballsy enough to take like 10 grand, and like, I don't have a whole lot of money, so to me, that's a lot. To some people, that's probably like nothing. But some of these Reddit people, they'll just flip around 10K. Just if they made 10K, they'll play with 10K. It's that kind of a deal. If you take 10K and you put it in a stock like Dogecoin, which is an Elon Musk cryptocurrency that was made to mock Bitcoin. Its sole purpose is there to prove how terrible and crappy cryptocurrency is. It traded at a fraction of a penny since its inception. The Redditors decided, hey, let's all pump Dogecoin and see what happens. So you throw 10K into Dogecoin at 0.02 cents, right? A fifth of a penny, $10,000 into a fifth of a penny stock, and that thing goes up to a nickel. You're a millionaire. A millionaire. And then you sell all your stuff. You got rich. Okay. That's how the system works. But when you do it, it's domestic terrorism. When Congress does it, and when the big old hedge funds there, then that's just making markets, is what they call it. Making markets. Doge became a meme. Yeah, it still is a meme. The thing is that, like I said, it doesn't matter if the crypto is any good. It doesn't matter if they produce anything, or even if they have a use case. It doesn't matter. If people see value in it as an investment, that's what matters. And you catch it on the way up before it falls, you make some money. That's how it is. And that's like day trading. And day trading is not what I'm suggesting for people to do when they're looking into crypto. I am suggesting to look into Bitcoin specifically, or Monero, or a privacy coin specifically. Put some money in there and just let it sit there and forget you even have it. These other coins, there's a reason there's a term called shitcoin, which is everything but Bitcoin. All right. Because they're just there. Some of them are scams. Some of them are decent stuff. Okay. But that is what they are in comparison to Bitcoin. Doesn't mean that the coin and the technology that they're using isn't better than Bitcoin. It's just that Bitcoin is 4/5 of the entire cryptocurrency market. The market cap is like $900 billion for all of crypto. And I think Bitcoin is at 750, which means all other coins are in that final leftover $100 million or something. And it's like 100 billion or something. Yeah, there isn't any comparison. And if you don't want something that goes up and down by 30% every other week. No, you want something that kind of goes up a little bit, goes down a little bit, whatever. By the end of the year, it's up 20, 30, 100, 200, 400%. That'd be Bitcoin. That would be the recommendation for that. Yeah, and that's how it works. So I think that's what I got, guys. I think that's what we got. I don't think if I got anything else. I had this link too. Oh yeah, everybody is buying billboards. That's why I was showing that all over. And it's like an inside joke to all the people out there who are aware of this story. And thanks to the news media for covering it, because it's like I said, if I was running the show with what they got going in the New World Order scheme of things, I'm like, geez, the last thing you'd want is to show weakness by allowing some sort of false flag or shenanigans they had at the Capitol. You know, maybe that was part of his plan, but that just doesn't seem like a thing you'd want to do, is to show that much weakness. And then you look really weak about bullies and these fraudster demon Satan guys being really scaredy cats about everything. They're making that little fence around the Capitol building permanent. That's how scared they are of the people. Just a bunch of crybabies. They have their little thing where a guy goes in there with his costume and stands at the podium and everyone's all scared, right? I think that they maybe actually are, but it's pathetic. It makes them look so weak. I would never allow that to happen if I was running that show. Absolutely not. I never would allow any news media to come out with anything that's going on Reddit. I'd make the Reddit people shut down their whatever it is. Wall Street Bets on Reddit. That's what it is. If you want to check it out, it's Wall Street Bets on Reddit, which is a pretty entertaining Reddit thread. But I would make them shut down Wall Street Bets. I'd make them shut down the exchanges. And I'd do whatever I could to make sure that nobody knew. That just makes sense. Maybe now there's enough good people in these areas where they can't help but the truth get out there. Right? And of course, the new narrative is going to be that these guys are domestic terrorists, in between their Grand Theft Auto fights that they're doing on the video games. They're taking down major hedge funds. Sounds like domestic terrorism, right? It's ridiculous. And I'm laughing and I'm enjoying it, and of course there's going to be struggles coming in through the year, but at least we know what we're dealing with, don't we? At least we have the light on to see clearly, right? But what exactly is really going on with some of this stuff? And most of it is not things you can do anything about. So why worry about it? As far as for protecting your money and protecting your assets, things like trust funds have existed forever. Why not buy some Bitcoin, throw it in a trust fund for your kids? A lot of people do that. And again, you don't have to buy an entire Bitcoin. You don't even have to buy an entire stock, right? That's how a lot of these people did the deal with GameStop, because even if you don't have the couple $100 it is for a share of GameStop, you can buy a portion of a stock, right? You can buy a portion of a Bitcoin. You can buy a portion of this and a portion of that. So it's really easy. Minimal investment. I mean, I think you have to spend at least $50 or $20 on Coinbase if you use that exchange, just to before they'll even transfer the money. But we're not talking huge sums of money. And if you hear about Robinhood, that was the deal with Robinhood, is that all these Reddit traders used Robinhood because there is no fees. There is no minimum amount that you have to spend to go buy your stock. There is no minimum anything. And there is no transaction fees. They get it on the back end, I guess, after you make money. I don't know how it works, but that's why they call it the Robinhood Redditors, that kind of thing. And learn a new skill, because that's where everything is going to be going, right? Just like you had to figure out how to use Internet Explorer. You had to figure out how to use your email, right? You had to figure out how to use Facebook when it came out. Now you got to figure out how to take down the government. Yeah. We are children of the light, 1 Thessalonians. One of the protesters is a Black Lives Matter guy disguised as a Trump supporter. Yeah, I mean, yeah. All of Black Lives Matter and Proud Boys, they're all feds. Okay. They're all groups that are headed by Fed people that it's a part of the fraud, guy. And it all goes back to this Wall Street thing. It all goes back to fake money. It all goes out of scamming people. Yeah. So I think that's what I got with that. Is this going to pop up? I got like a 10-second delay. It looks like it popped up. I'll play a couple of minutes of. This is Orange Pill. This is Max Kaiser and his wife, and this is from today. We watched it pretty much right before I went live. And this is a baby boomer and a Gen Xer talking about the situation that's going on with GameStop right now. And then I think with that, then we'll get out of here. But first we'll do this. Hopefully you can hear it. We'll check and make sure.
Gialbo is here. Gialbo.
Oh, yeah, it's amazing. Global insurrection against banker occupation. It's been taking different shapes and forms over the years, and it's certainly in the news this week, Stacy.
Right. The point I want to make is that we're always talking about the Renaissance and we're talking about the Enlightenment. And one thing that we've always stressed is that it can take decades from the point where the first ideas are introduced into a population before it erupts into fruition, into a revolution and in ideas and changing of thought of the society. So, 10 years ago, exactly, December 2010, Max Kaiser launched Crash JP Morgan Buy Silver. And the audience at the time just wasn't the right audience. It was too much Generation X, too many boomers in the audience. At that time, Generation Z was only like 10, 11 years old. At the oldest of them, maybe 12, 13 years old. The youngest of the millennial generation, you know, they were in like 17, 18, 19 years old. So I think we've finally got the right audience for it. These are the kids that were raised not on cable news, but hacking games, hacking the algorithms of games to figure out how to achieve the highest level within those games.
Right. So Crash JP Morgan Buy Bitcoin was predicated on a short squeeze.
Crash JP Morgan Buy Silver.
What did I say?
You said buy Bitcoin.
Oh, sorry. Crash JP Morgan Buy Silver was based on a short squeeze, right? And a short squeeze, okay, we're finding out what a short squeeze is this week. Now, 10 years ago, very, very difficult to explain to people what a short squeeze was, because it was very difficult to explain to people the concept of selling short. Most people really can't wrap their minds around the fact that you can sell stock short. That is to say, you're selling something that you've borrowed in the hopes of buying it back cheaper, right? So this is mostly not well understood. But here you've got all these gamers and hackers online on Robinhood, and they are sharing intelligence, and they know what a short sale is, and they know what a short squeeze is, and they know how to figure out what companies are vulnerable to a short squeeze. And they figured out that this company, GameStop, had a massive short position, well in excess of the total shares outstanding, which of course opens up a whole nother question about that. And that very little buying pressure actually would start to force the stock to go higher as hedge funds that were short the stock reacted. And in fact, they drove it from something like $10 to $500 at some point, and a couple of hedge funds went bust or temporarily bust before they were bailed out. But this is activism, financial activism, as we called it, and mobilizing the swarm to take apart some of the vulnerabilities, because these markets seem impregnable to some, or to mainstream media, and that there's no way that a swarm of Robinhooders could pick apart a hedge fund like this. But now we're at the stage where it is possible, and that information is now out of the bag.
Right. You know, our the subreddit of Wall Street Bets is, their tagline is something like they're 4chan with a Bloomberg terminal illness. So think of this, like who this generation in large part are. They are, like we said, Z and early, the youngest of the millennials. So what they're doing is they understand games better than all of us. And what Wall Street is playing the players, right? That's how you become a hedge fund billionaire. You play the players. You don't play the market. You don't play fundamentals. You don't play earnings reports and stuff like that. You play what the players are going to do. Also, they did the same thing. They started this. We knew how powerful they were when 4chan elected Donald Trump using memes. And now they're taking down the financial markets using memes. You know, their parents, Generation X and boomers, weren't paying attention to their children. You know, they didn't want to have to pay attention to them. They don't have the responsibility of taking care of them and put them in the basement or in the attic and say, go play your video games. Well, these kids learned how to take down their parents and their grandparents' financial system, their political system, all of it. It has just like evaporated into nothing, right? The deplorables got rid of free speech. Okay, the 4chaners that use memes to elect Donald Trump, we've now exposed that there actually is no free speech for half the population. Now we're showing that they're showing and exposing the fact that there, in fact, are no free markets. You know, you can only sell GameStop. You can't buy it, as happened with many of the online brokerages.
Right. They didn't do really anything much different than what was portrayed in that hit film, The Big Short. You know, and those people were held up as heroes. And
I've never seen The Big Short, but that's what's going on. And yeah, it's good times. I'm really happy that we're of course shining the light on everything. And it's going to be real interesting to see what they do. My guess is that government's going to bail out everybody, and no one's going to care. You know, we'll see until the next big thing comes rolling around. Until the next big thing. All the flicks are laced with propaganda. Yeah. I mean, you got to always take into account it's a Hollywood movie. And they got truth in there too. I think the Matrix, of course, is pretty spot on, and it is a as spoken from the guy who did the Hunger Games. He came out with produced a movie on all of the pedophile garbage and the Satanism in Hollywood recently that I haven't watched yet. That's up on Odysee for certain. I haven't watched it yet, but he talks about all of that, and he said the reason that everything is a remake and everything's a part 2 and everything is a derivative of something we've seen before is we can't be allowed to see anything new, because otherwise then we'll be onto their scam. You got to keep people with the fluoride in the water. You got to keep people telling people garbage on the news. You got to keep people saying and regurgitating the same old entertainment and pretend like it's new and all this stuff. And that was a very focused part of the reason that these movies, the reason that they're making movies that nobody liked in the first place, and they're making sequel after sequel of them, is directly related to that. They don't care about whether or not the movie makes any money. What was it? Star Wars, the whole thing. They don't care. They don't care if you don't like the movies. They want their messages put in there, and they can't do anything new unless it's very SJW or very whatever. And they don't care about the money. They don't care about the cost, because they'll just borrow more. They'll just borrow more money. They've got enough revenue. They don't care. And by destroying the financial system, there's going to be a return back to where the power is coming back to the people who are the workers, the people who actually generate the currency. Okay. Especially if you go to a more sound currency, if you have regulations that go in to prevent some more of this stuff, and, do the things that government is supposed to be doing. I don't know. I think it's a good thing. It's a very good thing. Nobody is talking about the food. EQ and nostalgia. If you want to hear about the food, you want to listen to the Ice Age Farmer. Okay? Ice Age Farmer. He's a real doom and gloom farmer guy who talks all about how they're trying to destroy you with the food and all that. And talking about, that's why it's like, I don't watch a whole lot of people that all they want to do is talk about how bad things are all the time. But he's a good one for that. I go out of my way to get, as good a food as I can, I guess. I don't know. Grow stuff. It's only so much you can do on that front. I think you're doing pretty good if you just don't wear the mask and don't take the vaccine in this day and age. I think I just try for that. Forget about your organic chickens with little diplomas on top that are running around, doing laps and hurdles or whatever. I just settle for not taking a vaccine. I'll settle for that. Maybe take down 1 or 2 hedge funds on my way. How about that? All right, guys, that's what we got. Yeah, coming up next time, we're going to talk a little bit about probably the Bible version issue a bit, along with if you're kind of new to Christianity and you're come in from flat earth side of things or some of the other truther organizations or stuff, we got some messes to clean up with these guys, and that'll be next time. So with that, everybody, take care. God bless. Glad you could make it. Please do sign up on the Odysee platform, because, you know how YouTube is. They could just take me off. I think that it was a blessing in disguise, though. I was blackballed about 2-3 years ago, maybe, to where I just stopped getting subscribers. And because of that, they don't advertise me to anyone. They don't put me in anyone's feed unless you already always watch me, right? But I think that's allowed me to stay under the radar as far as talking about stuff, because I haven't gotten anything. Imagine that. Ever since I stopped messing around with Denlinger, it seems like the troll army has gone away, and I stopped getting community guidelines strike for nothing. Imagine that. Imagine that. Maybe I should see what old Bribes is up to. What do you think? What do you think? But no, anyway, me being somewhat halfway deplatformed was actually a good thing. But, moving ahead, we want to go on to like Odysee or something like that. And Odysee is a better platform because, of course, YouTube isn't going to give me any money for anything I do and whatever. Odysee has participation points. and it pays you in cryptocurrency that's almost worthless, right? But it's something just for participating. So I recommend people do that. And also all of the information of like the things that they won't allow on YouTube, and, such as the vaccines might permanently damage you, stuff like that. And the proof is going to be up there. Talking to you about even mentioning Odysee is actually now against the new terms of service, about saying how Odysee has all of my stuff up there too. Even mentioning that is considered against the new terms of service. I don't know. I don't even bother to read them because it doesn't matter. You can go right down line by line and follow that terms of service all you want to. It doesn't make any difference. So that's what we got. And yeah, everyone take care. We are going to be out of here.